What happens now that Donald Trump has won? The first 100 days of a Trump presidency. Donald Trump has promised that as president he will honor the pledge stitched into his white and red baseball caps, "Make America Great Again." The former television entertainer's campaign has been a roller coaster of triumphs and pitfalls, but his love for hyperbole has never wavered. With him in the White House, Mr. Trump has said, his supporters are going to win so big they will soon be sick of winning. When it comes to mapping out the details of a Trump presidency, the Republican candidate has been no less extravagant. Donald Trump will honor election result, if he wins play. 035. It is customary in American presidential elections that a candidate sets out a vision for their first term in the Oval Office. But ever keen to be the greatest, Mr. Trump has slashed the timeline of his proposals from 100 days to 1. At an address delivered in historic Gettysburg last month, Mr. Trump laid out a contract with the American people that would begin with a very busy first day. He proceeded to detail 24 hours designed to erase traces of Barack Obama's presidency and set America on a protectionist, nativist, track. Donald Trump's Road to the White House play. 317. Immigration. Mr. Trump's rhetoric on immigration came to define his presidential campaign. Though slightly more carefully worded, his proposal once in office remains some of the most divisive legislation on the issue. He has quietly dropped his call to remove all undocumented immigrants from the U.S., a move that, aside from being so impractical it might be impossible, experts have warned would damage the U.S. economy by taking too many people out of the labor market. Instead, he would immediately begin the process of deporting illegal immigrants with criminal records. Recent studies estimate there are fewer than 168,000 such people in the United States. But Mr. Trump put the number at some 2 million, suggesting his calculations of criminals, people who have had minor run-ins with the law, such as getting a speeding ticket. He will also suspend immigration from terror-prone regions where vetting cannot safely occur. Though the terminology is vague, Syria would almost certainly be on this list. Mr. Trump has claimed that the government does not know who the refugees it lets in are from the country, despite their being scrutinized for up to 2 years before being allowed to enter the U.S. And last but not least, there is the wall. This would not happen on his first day, he admits. But eventually a Trump administration would push through legislation build a wall along the southern border of the United States and make Mexico bear the costs. He has not, however, explained in detail how this would happen. Donald Trump, Mexico will pay for wall, single quote 100% single quote play. 134. Reform Washington. Donald Trump has promised to drain the swamp of big money Washington politics. In one of his most popular campaign pitches, he has said he will reduce the corrupting influence of special interests. Speaking in Gettysburg, at the site where in 1863 Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous speech to unite Americans, Mr. Trump sought to mimic the legendary leader, promising to reinstate a government of, by and for the people. His Day One reforms include a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on all members of Congress and a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials becoming lobbyists after they leave government service. In an effort to shrink the size of government, the nominee called for a hiring freeze on all federal employees to reduce its workforce through attrition, exempting military, public safety, and public health. Trade. A Trump presidency would break from the traditional Republican commitment to free trade, imposing a set of protectionist policies to close America's economic borders. He will immediately announce his intention to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada and Mexico. He would cancel participation in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a controversial trade arrangement with 12 countries. The pact aims to deepen economic ties between these nations, slashing tariffs and fostering trade to boost growth. But critics argue that it will also intensify competition between countries' labor forces. Trump, Britain would not be back of the queue with play. 128 Foreign Policy. Donald Trump has said that as president he may not guarantee protection to fellow NATO countries who come under attack. In an interview just before the Republican convention, Mr. Trump said America would help only if that country had fulfilled its obligations within the alliance. It marked the first time in post-World War II era that a candidate for president suggested putting conditions on America's defense of its key allies. Advocating an ultra-America first view of the world, Mr. Trump has also threatened to withdraw troops from Europe and Asia if those allies fail to pay more for American protection. Mr. Trump has flip-flopped on key issues including Syria. Most recently, the candidate implied that he sees Bashar al-Assad, the country's dictator, as the lesser evil when compared with US-backed rebel opposition groups, some of whom have Islamist leanings. He has promised to bomb the hell out of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Energy and the environment. In a deeply disappointing development for environmentalists, Mr. Trump plans to cancel billions of dollars in payments to the United Nations climate change programs. He has said he would redirect the funds to pay for infrastructure projects in the U.S. He has also promised to lift restrictions on fracking and boost American oil and natural gas production. He would lift roadblocks to the Keystone Pipeline. Environmental activists fought hard to convince the Obama administration to stop the infrastructure project, warning against the effects of the increase in oil production. Its path between Alberta, Canada and Nebraska in the United States was also said to damage fragile ecosystems. Jewel Coke plant on the Dismal River, just outside Grundy, Virginia. Jewel Coke plant on the Dismal River, just outside Grundy, Virginia. Credit, Dermot Tatlow / The Telegraph. Wipe Barack Obama from the history books. One of Mr. Trump's first actions will be to try to erase the effects of Mr. Obama's presidency. The Republican candidate has promised to cancel every executive action, memorandum and order issued by President Obama. According to Stephen Moore, an official campaign advisor, the campaign has sought to identify maybe 25 executive orders that their candidate could reverse. Trump spends several hours signing papers and erases the Obama presidency, he said. Barack Obama warns the fate of the world at risk if Donald Trump elected. Play 049. Chief among them is the Affordable Care Act. Also known as Obamacare, the president's signature policy has brought health insurance to some 12.7 million people who would have struggled to afford medical cover. But it has also pushed up insurance premiums for Americans not on government assistance. Mr. Trump would replace this with another system, the health savings accounts. This plan would give more power to states over how to handle funds. But beyond that, critics have said that the Trump campaign has failed to explain how it differs significantly from Mr. Obama's healthcare plan, and how they would implement it. Like with much of his presidential campaign, Mr. Trump appears to be asking the American people to trust him and wait and see.